Welcome, dear one. Let the hush of evening wrap around you like a warm woolen shawl. Feel the weight of your body sink gently into the bed. Imagine a single candle glowing in the dark. Its flame steady, its light golden and soft. The air smells faintly of apples, of wood smoke, of linen warmed by firelight. And our story tonight begins in a quiet cottage on the edge of a forest on the eve of Samhain. Our story sets sail in the year 1321 in a small village nestled in the green hills of Connaught, where the harvest has just ended and the air is crisp with the breath of autumn. The sun has set and the sky is a deep indigo. Stars blink awake one by one, and the moon, pale and round, rises slowly over the trees. In a thatched roof cottage at the edge of the village, a single candle glows in the window, its light flickering gently behind the oiled parchment pane. Inside, the hearth crackles, a fire of peat and ashwood, its scent earthy and sweet. The floor is swept clean. The table is set with a simple cloth, and on it rests a wooden bowl filled with apples, red and gold, plucked from the orchard that morning. A young girl named Aisling sits by the hearth, her hair the color of chestnuts, her dress of homespun wool. She is quiet, still, her hands folded in her lap. Tonight is Samhain, the turning of the year, when the veil between worlds grows thin, when the spirits of the departed may walk among the living. It is a night of fire, of memory, of mystery, and for Aisling, it is a night of hope, for she has heard the old stories whispered by her grandmother of how, on Samhain night, one might glimpse the future with the help of a single apple. In medieval Ireland, apples were sacred, symbols of knowledge, of love, of the soul's journey. On Samhain, young women would peel an apple in one long curl and toss the peel over their shoulder, hoping it would fall in the shape of a letter, its first initial of their future love. Others would place apple seeds on the hearth, naming each one and watching to see which would pop first, a sign of true affection. Still others would gaze into a mirror by candlelight, eating an apple slowly, hoping to glimpse a face behind them, a vision of the one they were destined to meet. These were not games, but quiet rituals, acts of wonder, belonging, of belief. Aisling reaches for the bowl, selects a single apple, round, smooth, its skin dappled with gold. She holds it in her hands and breathes in its scent, sweet, crisp, alive with autumn. She takes a small knife, its handle carved from ashwood, begins to peel. Slowly, carefully, she turns the apple in her hand, letting the peel fall in one long, curling ribbon. The fire crackles, the candle flickers, the room holds its breath. She finishes the peel and holds it gently in her palm, then rises and walks to the doorway. Aisling stands in the doorway. The night air is cool, still, carries the scent of damp leaves, of distant peat smoke, of something older, quieter. She holds the apple peel in her hand, its ribbon, long and curling, soft as silk. She closes her eyes and breathes. Then she tosses it gently over her shoulder, letting it fall to the earthen floor behind her. She turns and looks. Teal rests in a soft curve, a shape, a letter. She stares, and her heart flutters. It is an E, or perhaps a C. The candle flickers. The shadows shift. She smiles, not because she knows, but because she wonders. She returns to the hearth and sits once more. The fire crackles. The candle glows. She feels a hush in the room, not empty, but full. Her grandmother used to say that on Samhain night, styled the ancestors draw near, not to frighten, but to comfort. Aisling imagines them, seated around her, silent, watching. She feels the warmth of their presence, the hush of their breath. the soft rustle of linen robes. She does not speak. She simply listens. To the fire, to the candle, to the quiet. In medieval Celtic tradition, when marked the end of the harvest, in the beginning of the dark half of the year. It was not a time of fear, but of reverence. The veil between worlds was believed too thin, allowing spirits to pass, to visit, to be remembered. Families would leave food on the doorstep, light candles in windows, set empty chairs at the table, not to summon, but to welcome. It was a time to honor the dead, to speak their names, to feel their presence. Aisling had set a small plate by the hearth with a slice of bread and a cup of cider. She had whispered her grandmother's name, and now she felt her near, beside the hearth, wrapped in linen. It's a small hand mirror, its frame carved from rowan wood, its surface polished with beeswax. Aisling unwraps it gently and holds it in her lap. She has heard the stories of girls who gazed into mirrors on Samhain night, eating an apple slowly, hoping to glimpse a face behind them. It's a vision of the one they would love. She does not expect. She only wonders. She takes another apple and slices it carefully, then eats, slowly, softly. The candle flickers. The mirror glimmers. She gazes, not with hope, but with peace. The cottage is quiet, the fire low, the shadows long. Outside, the wind stirs the trees. Leaves rustle. Owls call. Inside, the air is warm, still, sacred. Aisling finishes the apple, sets the mirror aside. She does not see a face, but she feels a hush, a warmth, a whisper. She smiles and closes her eyes. The fire has faded. Its glow now a soft bed of embers. The candle burns low, its flame steady, golden, quiet. Aisling sits in stillness, her hands folded, her breath slow. She does not speak. She does not move. She simply listens to the hush of the room, to the whisper of the wind, to the soft creak of the cottage walls. It is the dreaming hour, when the veil is thinnest, when the soul is most open. She closes her eyes and lets her thoughts drift like leaves on a stream. She dreams of a field, golden with wheat, the sky above pale and wide. She walks barefoot, the earth warm beneath her feet, the wind gentle in her hair. She sees a figure in the distance, cloaked in wool, face hidden. She walks toward them. Slowly, softly, they turn, and she sees her grandmother's eyes, kind, wise, full of light. No words are spoken, but Aisling understands. She is loved. She is guided. She is safe. In medieval Celtic belief, Samhain was not only a time of ritual, but of dreaming. It was said that the spirits of the dead could visit the living in dreams, to offer guidance, to share wisdom, to bring peace. Herbs like mugwort and vervain were brewed into teas, to invite visions, to open the mind. Mirrors were covered, to keep dreams pure, and candles were left burning. To light the way, Aisling had sipped a small cup of mugwort tea, prepared by her grandmother's recipe, and now she dreams. She walks through the field, into a forest, where the trees are tall and quiet. The path is soft with moss, lit by lanterns hung from branches. Their flames steady, golden. She follows the path, each step slow, each breath deep. She hears a stream, a lull of water over stone. She hears a song, soft, wordless, like memory. She follows the sound and finds a clearing. In the clearing, a circle of stones, old, weathered, covered in lichen. In the center, a single apple tree, its branches bare, its bark silver in the moonlight. She walks to the tree and places her hand on its trunk. It is warm, alive. It hums. She closes her eyes and feels the breath of the earth. The hush of the ancestors, the whisper of the veil. She does not speak. She simply listens. Aisling stands beneath the apple tree, its bark cool beneath her fingers, its branches bare, yet humming with memory. The wind stirs, and a single apple falls. Though none had been seen before, it lands gently at her feet, round, red, perfect. She kneels and lifts it in her hands. Its skin is warm, as if it had been resting in sunlight. She holds it close and hears a whisper, not in words, but in feeling. A hush of knowing, a breath of peace around her. The stones begin to glow, faintly, softly, each one pulsing with a golden light, like the embers of a long-forgotten fire. She walks slowly around the circle, touching each stone, feeling its warmth, its story. One stone hums louder than the rest. She kneels before it and places the apple upon it. The glow deepens, and the air grows still. She closes her eyes and listens in ancient Celtic lands. Stone circles were sacred, places of gathering, of ritual, of remembrance. On Samhain, it was believed that these circles became portals, where the living could speak to the dead, where time thinned, truth could be heard. Offerings were left, apples, milk, bread, not to summon, but to honor. Ashling's village had such a circle, long overgrown, but still remembered. Her grandmother had told her stories of songs sung at dusk, candles lit in silence, and now, in her dreams, she walks among them. The apple glows, its light soft and golden. Aisling hears a voice, low, gentle, like wind through leaves. It speaks not in words, but in warmth, in memory. She sees faces, her grandmother, her mother as a child, a man she does not know, but feels she will. The voice hums, and she understands. She is not alone. She is not lost. She is part of a thread, woven through time. The light begins to fade. The stones dim. The tree stills. Aisling feels herself drifting, floating, returning. The forest fades. The field softens. The sky darkens. She opens her eyes, finds herself back in the cottage. The fire now embers. The candle nearly gone. The mirror rests beside her. The apple peel still curled on the floor. She smiles and breathes. The candle has burned down, its wax pooled in a golden ring. The embers in the hearth glow faintly, like stars fading at dawn. Aisling stirs, wrapped in her woolen blanket. Her breath slow, her eyes still closed. She does not wake with a start, but with a sigh, soft, peaceful. The dream lingers, not in detail, but in feeling. A warmth in her chest, a hush in her thoughts, a quiet knowing. She opens her eyes and sees the apple peel, still curled on the floor, still shaped like a letter. She smiles and rises. She walks to the hearth and kneels before the small plate of the bread untouched, the cider still. She lifts the cup, and pours it gently onto the earth outside the door. A final offering, a quiet thank you. She speaks her grandmother's name, softly, lovingly, then returns inside and folds the linen cloth and places the mirror back in its wrapping. She does not rush, she does not speak, she simply moves. With reverence, with calm. In medieval Celtic tradition, Samhain was not only a time of opening, but of closing. At dawn, the veil was believed to thicken once more. Spirits returned to their rest. The living resumed their rhythm. Candles were snuffed. Offerings cleared. Names whispered one last time. It was not a goodbye, but a blessing, a promise to remember, to honor, to carry forward. Aisling knew this, and so she moved gently, softly. And now, dear listener, you have walked with Aisling. You have sat by her hearth. You have felt the hush of Samhain night. Let the warmth of candlelight wrap around you. Let the scent of ripe apples and peat smoke linger. Let the soft rustle of linen and the whisper of dreams cradle you. Sleep now until the next story finds you in candlelight and memory. Good night. Our story today begins in a time of dusk and whispers in the eve of Samhain, when the barrier between worlds feels thin. We step quietly into a Gaelic village called Dunmore, where reeds sigh in the evening wind, and smoke curls from peat hearths. In the heart of Dunmore, there lived a craftsman named Ceolin. He dwelt in a small cottage by the river's edge, where willow trees dipped their branches into the water. Each autumn, as summer folded into winter, he made masks from slender willow wands woven forms that curved like gentle faces. On the night of Samhain, these willow masks would be worn by villagers as whispers of protection, disguises to confuse wandering spirits, a gesture linked to old beliefs that souls and fair folk might walk among mortals on that liminal eve. As twilight deepened, Ceolin sat at his bench beside a low hearth. I invite you to imagine the flicker of flame, the soft pop and sigh of wood, the mellow scent of moss and peat. He reached toward a supple willow branch, curved by the river's current, and bent it in graceful arcs. With delicate fingers, he wove thinner twigs as ribs, weaving the mask's shape in silence. The branches whispered faintly as he coaxed them into place. In Dunmore, it was said that fair folk and departed souls sometimes crossed into the mortal realm on Samhain's night to guard against confusion or mischief. Villagers wore masks so that spirits would pass them by or mistake them for one of their own. That old medieval mindset mingled reverence with fear, art with prayer. When Ceolin set aside the half-finished mask for a moment, he listened to the reeds beyond the window. The air was full of hush, and the river murmured under moonlight. A gentle breeze stirred the willow leaves, and he felt as though unseen eyes watched the dance of branches. But he returned to his work calmly, each weaving motion a soft prayer, protection, patience, gentle craft. As mask after mask grew under his hands, some shaped like serene faces, some like trickling leaves. Villagers would come through the dusk to receive them. A mother might press a mask into her child's palms, telling a soft blessing, "Wear this tonight, and may your dreams be sheltered." An elder might nod as the mask rests on the brow, weaving assurance that in disguise we might pass through shadows unbothered. By the time sunset deepened to midnight blue, the village of Dunmore seemed to drift in a quiet lull. Faces half concealed by willow, lanterns lit in windows, hearth fires dimming to glowing embers. Ceolin, stepping outside, cast a mask into his own face. Supple willow against skin, the wind sighed around him. The smell of damp earth and wood lay in the air like a lullaby. He walked among the villagers, each step soft on leaf-littered paths, greeting them with a gentle nod. Under the masks, their eyes were soft and watchful. There was no fear, only the steady hush of shared ritual. The fair folk, if they stirred in between worlds, would see no difference between them and the villagers masked in willow. Later, under a pale moon, Ceolin paused at the riverbank. The willow branches dipped into the current, mirrored below. He removed his mask for a moment, placing it on a stone by the water, and watched as the river's edge rippled faintly. In the reflection, the mask's image wavered between leaf and face, blending spirit and humanity. His heart slowed. T's breath deepened. He whispered, "Thanks to the wood, the river, the unseen watchers," then retrieved the mask and wore it again. By the time the night grew fully late, the village quieted. The masked faces drifted home, footsteps soft on moss and sod. Ceolin returned to his cottage, warmed by embers, and sat before the hearth. He placed his tools aside, traced his fingers along the wood grain of his masks, and felt the gentle weight of magic in gentle craft. Now, you too may imagine yourself sitting beside him in that cottage by the river, listening to the crackle of hearth fire, the whisper of willow outside the window. Each breath you take brings calm, deeper, hail softness, exhale tension. The dark beyond the walls is not threatening. It is laced with possibility, the hush of unseen worlds that visit only in quiet moments. Sleep begins here. Let the shadows weave lullabies. Let the reeds sigh with you. Let the willow mask hold safe the space between dreaming and waking. The hour had grown late. Beyond the cottages, the fields slept under frost-touched mist. In the distance, Caolan could hear the faint toll of the chapel bell. One slow note to mark the turning of the day, the beginning of Samhain's true night. He sat by the hearth, eyes half-lidded, the finished masks resting around him in quiet company. They seemed alive somehow, faces carved from silence, shaped from wind and water. The willow glowed faintly in the firelight, bending shadows that swayed as though breathing. Caolan closed his eyes for a moment, listening. The old stories told that at the crossing hour, the deep of midnight, the veil between worlds grew thin enough for spirits to pass through, if only for a breath. Yet he felt no fear, only peace, only the slow beat of his heart and the crackling of fire. Then, softly, there came a sound, like reeds brushing together, just beyond the door. He looked up. Through the small window, the moonlight shimmered on the river. The mist there was moving, curling in pale ribbons that seemed almost to take shape. He rose quietly and opened the door. Cold air slipped inside, cool and damp and filled with the scent of water and wood smoke. The night beyond shimmered, half real, half dream. At the riverbank stood a figure, slender, glimmering faintly as though woven from light and shadow. A woman, perhaps, or something like one. Her hair seemed made of willow leaves. Her gown rippled like current. When she turned, her face was not a face at all, but the delicate pattern of Caolan's own weaving one of his masks, alive. He bowed his head, slow and humble. "You made this," she whispered, voice like reeds in wind. "You shaped the threshold between your world and ours." Caolan's heart beat calm but deep. "It was never meant to call you forth," he said softly, "only to protect my people, to honor the night." She smiled, or the pattern of the willow shifted in a way that felt like smiling, and so it does. "Fear not, the old ways craftsman. We do not come to harm those who remember us kindly." Her hand rose, light as moonbeam, and brushed his cheek. Where her touch passed, he felt not cold, but a deep calm, like the coolness before dawn. "Tonight," she murmured, "the veil thins, but only those who weave with love may see through." He gazed at her in wonder. "What do you see then, when you look at me?" The figure's eyes glimmered. "A bridge," she whispered, "quiet soul who listens." Behind her, other shapes flickered in the fog, forms that seemed half spirit, half echo, dancers, wanderers, the faint glint of armor and veil, perhaps souls of the departed, passing through for but a moment. Yet all was serene. The air itself hummed with harmony, neither living nor dead, but balanced between. She stepped closer. "Would you walk the river's edge with me?" He nodded, wordless, and together they moved along the misted bank. The water whispered beside them. Moonlight turned each ripple into liquid silver. Somewhere an owl called once, soft and distant. "Once," she said, "your people knew this night as the new year, the end and the beginning folded together. Not death, not birth, but pause. A breath between the two." He nodded again. "That's what it feels like," he murmured. A stillness before something kind. They paused where the river bent toward the forest. The willow trees leaned overhead, branches swaying in slow rhythm. The figure lifted her arms, and the leaves stirred in answer. Thousands of tiny murmurs that rose like a lullaby. "Your craft carries remembrance," she said. "Each mask you weave becomes a promise that even when the living forget, the old harmony endures." "You weave peace into fear." Caolan felt warmth spread through his chest, quiet and steady. "Then I'll keep weaving," he said, "long as the river gives me willow, and my hands can move." The spirit inclined her head, light shimmering at the edges of her form. "Then sleep, craftsman. You have honored the old way well." With that, she stepped backward into the mist. One by one, the figures behind her faded, until only the faint ripple of water remained. The moon hung pale above the trees, and the night returned to its stillness. Caelan stood for a long moment, feeling the calm hum of the world around him. The breeze through the willow leaves seemed to whisper blessings. He turned back toward his cottage, his steps slow and unhurried. Inside, the hearth still glowed faintly, and the masks shimmered in its warmth. Spigly. He placed the willow mask he'd worn upon the mantel and sat again in his chair. Just a breath between worlds, he murmured, and then rest. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and listened to the crackle of fire, the river's sigh, and the endless, comforting stillness that filled the space between one year and the next. When Caelan awoke, the morning was pale and still, as frost rimed the window glass. The air smelled of peat and new beginnings. He rose slowly, stretching, the memory of his dream lingering like the scent of wild mint. The masks lay on his table, their woven faces calm and bright. Yet one, the last he had finished before midnight, seemed changed. The pattern of its weaving was more intricate, now interlaced like the ripples of the river, as though unseen hands had finished it for him. He smiled faintly, touching the mask with reverent fingers. "You worked through me," he murmured. "And I thank you." Outside, the village stirred. Smoke curled from chimneys, roosters called, and children ran through the misted fields wearing their willow masks, laughing, pretending to be spirits and heroes and sprites. The fear was gone. What lingered instead was joy. The craftsman stepped outside and breathed in the cold, clean air. The river glittered beneath the morning sun, and the willow branches dipped low in greeting. He felt rested, grounded, whole, and somewhere, perhaps only in his imagination, he thought he'd heard a soft voice whispering across the water. Behind every mask is peace waiting to be seen. Caelan stepped beyond his cottage door, the world still cloaked in the hush that follows sacred nights. The village was waking, not with bustle or chatter, but with quiet reverence. Samhain had passed, and the air felt clean, renewed. He walked down to the riverbank, his breath clouding in the cool air. The water flowed soft and glassy now, no longer burdened by mist. Along its edge, where he had once seen the spirit's shape, few rushes still swayed as though someone had only just stepped away. Kay bent and touched the surface of the river, cold, smooth, alive. His reflection looked back, the face of an old man, gentle-eyed and calm. The willow mask hung from his hand, its weave gleaming faintly in the light. It was tradition, he remembered, to release one mask into the river after the Samhain night, a gift to the unseen, a thank you for safe passage through the darkness. So, with care, he lowered it into the water. The current caught it slowly, turning it in slow circles, carrying it downstream. As it floated away, it seemed to shimmer for just a moment, and then it was gone. Caelan stayed there for a long while, breathing with the rhythm of the river. In that quiet, he could almost sense the pulse of the world, the slow, steady heart that beat beneath earth and water and tree. It was not a sound, but a feeling, something that vibrated deep within his chest, syncing with his own heartbeat. It was then that he understood. The veil between worlds had not only thinned for the spirits, it had thinned for him too. The boundary between seen and unseen, between making and being, had softened. His work, his breath, the wind through willow branches, all of it was one gentle thing. He returned to the village as the sun rose fully. Children ran barefoot over the damp grass, chasing after the last curls of mist. Women hung herbs and rowan branches over their doors, murmuring thanks to the old gods and the saints alike. The men stacked wood for the winter hearths, their laughter soft and full of relief, and every face he passed, behind their eyes, behind the smile, carried something quieter now, as though they too had glimpsed a peace that couldn't quite be named. Caelan nodded to them, offered a warm smile, and continued on toward the small chapel near the edge of Dunmore. The bell there, the one that tolled each Samhain midnight, now hung silent, waiting for the year to turn again. Inside the chapel, he knelt not to pray, but simply to listen. The air smelled of beeswax and heather, the floor cool beneath his hands. Through the high window, a single shaft of sunlight fell across the altar, illuminating a carved wooden cross that time had softened at the edges. In the stillness, he whispered, "Thank you for the craft, for the peace it brings, for the quiet between the beats of life." His words fell like petals onto the silence, absorbed, accepted, unjudged. When he rose again, the world outside seemed to hum with quiet joy. A black bird sang from a thatched rooftop, the first song of morning, and as its voice carried through the crisp air, it mingled with the rustle of willow leaves down by the river, a soft duet between living and unseen. Caelan smiled, wrapped his cloak tighter, and began the slow walk home. He felt no hurry. There was time now, time for weaving, for resting, for simple kindness. As he neared his cottage, he paused once more to watch the sunlight filter through the branches. Every leaf shimmered like a coin, every shadow gentle as a sigh. He thought of the Spirit's words, "Behind every mask is truth," waiting patiently for morning, and he knew then that the truth she spoke of was not only of spirits or souls, but of himself, of the quiet life he had built with his hands. The day stretched gently over the village. Smoke rose from the cottages, silver threads curling into the pale sky. The Samhain dawn was a quiet one, neither bright nor cold, but perfectly balanced, as though the world itself were pausing between heartbeats. Caelan had finished his morning chores and sat by the river again, his cloak gathered around his shoulders. The water glittered softly, carrying with it the faint shimmer of the willow mask he had set adrift hours before. He thought of how it turned and spun upon the current, moving toward whatever waited beyond sight. He smiled. "There's peace in letting go," he murmured. His fingers brushed the soil beside him, cool, damp, textured with roots and moss. He traced circles idly in the earth, the same circular patterns he used in his weaving. The motion soothed him like the rhythm of breathing. He looked up to see a group of children near the tree line, gathering fallen branches, their laughter echoing like bells through the clearing. One of them waved, holding up a bit of willow like a treasure. Caelan waved back, his heart light. He thought of how the craft would continue, how hands yet unborn would bend the same willow, shaping it into art and protection, carrying forward the memory of this night, long after his own had faded. The river's murmur grew fainter. The children's voices drifted away. All that remained was the whisper of the wind through the reeds. He closed his eyes. For a moment he could feel the weight of years slipping from him, not heavy but gentle, like the untying of knots. His breath deepened, his body relaxed fully into the earth. And somewhere between waking and sleep, he felt her presence once more, the spirit woman, quiet and luminous. She did not speak this time. She didn't need to. She simply stood nearby, her form made of light and river mist, watching as the craftsman's breathing slowed into rhythm with the turning of the world. Her hand extended, and though no one could see it, she brushed her palm against his brow, leaving behind a faint warmth that lingered like sunlight. "You have woven peace," she might have whispered. "Rest now, dreamer." The wind carried her words away, and the willow branches bowed low in solemn grace. And now, as the last embers of the fire settle into a steady glow, you may let your thoughts drift even further, as though you are lying not only in your own bed, but somewhere older, deeper, neath a silvered moon that has watched over 1,000 years. The night hums softly. You hear the faint sigh of the wind through the willow branches outside, a gentle lullaby sung by nature itself. The same song that once filled the air above Dunmore when Caelan's village slept in peace after Samhain's passing. Imagine yourself there, not as a visitor, but as part of the dream that place became. You are walking down a narrow medieval path, stones worn smooth beneath your bare feet. The air smells faintly of smoke and dew, and somewhere nearby, bread is baking, the scent mingling with peat fire and river mist. A candle glows in every cottage window, small flickers of gold in the quiet. No one rushes, no one speaks loudly. The world feels like it's breathing in slow rhythm with you. As you pass, a cat curls in the doorway, stretching lazily, its fur catching a thread of moonlight. The creature opens one eye, green, gleaming, and then closes it again, trusting the peace of this hour. You walk toward the willow grove beyond the village. The ground there is soft and forgiving, blanketed in fallen leaves that whisper underfoot. Each step you take releases a small hush, as though the earth itself were encouraging you onward. The moon is high now, casting long ribbons of light across the river. You see the water glimmering gently, its surface alive with the reflection of stars. And there, floating among them, a familiar shape, the willow mask. It drifts slowly, its woven reeds glistening faintly with dew. It is neither eerie nor strange, only calm, a symbol of care and connection, woven by hands that believed in balance between worlds. You kneel by the water's edge and watch it pass, feeling a sense of quiet gratitude rise within you for all those who came before, who tended hearts, wove stories, lit candles to remember. You realize the peace you feel is the same one Kaelin must have known, that gentle certainty that the world, even when mysterious, is kind at its core. You sit for a while, listening to the water move. Its sound is steady and hypnotic, like a slow breath in the darkness. As you listen, the world around you begins to shimmer, just a little edges softening, its colors deepening, as though the dream itself is opening wider. You look up, and in the silver light of the moon, the willow trees begin to sway in slow unison. Their long branches move like ribbons underwater, brushing together in patterns that seem almost deliberate, like the weaving of another mask woven by the forest itself. You watch, mesmerized. The rustle becomes rhythmic, the sound of leaves overlapping like ocean waves. It's the same cadence as your breath. Inhale, exhale, over and over, perfectly in time. You feel yourself relaxing deeper still. Every thought drifts outward like ripples on the river. Every breath carries you closer to a quiet that feels infinite. And then, just before sleep claims you completely, you see her, the spirit woman of the story, standing again among the trees. Her form is faint now, woven of light and mist, but her eyes are kind and bright. She nods once, as if recognizing you. Then she reaches out her hand, and from the willow branches above, a single leaf drifts downward into her palm. She whispers softly, slowly, and though the words are too ancient to fully understand, you know what they mean. They are words of safe passage, a blessing given to those crossing into the land of dreams. She sets the leaf upon the water beside the mask, and together they drift onward, mask and leaf, craft and nature, joined in stillness. The ripples widen, reflecting the moon and stars, until all becomes one shimmering surface. The river, the night, and your breath aligned as one endless motion. The sound of the water fades now, becoming softer with every breath you take. The scent of smoke, the feel of moss beneath your fingers, the hum of the willows, all of it blurs gently, melting into the edges of your dream. Sleep well, traveler. The willows are watching. All is well.